Hey guys, welcome to the episode of BBQ Talk. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing the foil boat. The last big topic people wanted me to discuss it was, cooking tallow in butcher paper, and lately the next big topic has been, butcher paper or foil boat. And I can say just with all honesty, I love both methods a lot. I had an opportunity to work with the good people at LeRoy and Lewis for about 2 months, and then I got brought back to kind of help out for like another week and a half at some point. And it's just really fun to work with those guys because they're always doing something different. They're always trying something new, whether it be just like cooking different types of meats, creating dishes that have nothing to do with proteins, or just being flexible enough to change the cooking style, something that they've done for a while, to see if it just works better. And even with all that, because they only cook briskets on weekends, I hadn't really had the opportunity to really get myself a full I guess analysis or get full thoughts of the foil boat, just because I haven't practiced it enough. So, I wanted to talk about this because I think there are good things in both methods, but I figured that it'd probably be better to bring in someone who has done it enough. We're lucky enough to have Evan LeRoy of LeRoy and Lewis Barbecue to join us for this discussion. So he's going to talk about kind of the origin of how it started, and also just kind of different checks that he's looking for when just checking a brisket in general, but also how to really implement this foil bolt method. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation I had with Evan LeRoy from LeRoy and Lewis.
So the way we came up with it, we were cooking at Friedman's. My friend Diego was the sous chef at the time. Loved the guy, a little bit lazy when it came to stuff. So he was checking the briskets for doneness, kind of unwrapped the foil. We used to wrap them completely in foil back
Mm-hmm.
then. He unwrapped it a little bit, kind of tested it. They weren't done yet. And he didn't really wrap it all the way back together. He just kind of like, not
Loosely
really
tented it.
closed it and then just kind of put it back there and kick the fire way up because they weren't done and we need to get them done. So higher heat, open top, kind of crusted up the top, and we were like, "Whoa, this is really good." It's like
Yeah.
really crunchy, and it's got like the kind of crunchy on the fat, and kind of makes the fat itself a little more palatable. And we liked it a lot, so we kind of leaned into it, and we kind of figured out a good way to like kind of crunch it down, and like just basically used one piece of foil that was a little bit shorter than the other piece of foil, and just found a good way and just kind of perfected it over time.
Yeah. So
So
just like anything, it's just tapping off of just
yeah, it just
accident.
happened randomly. Just because somebody, yeah, was a little too lazy. But and more importantly, it was really different than everything else, right? It was really good, but it was really different. Um, so we continued to do that. Like I said, kind of, leaned into it, started kind of perfecting it a little bit more. And the way that we do it now is we rip a big long piece of foil, probably about 2 feet, and that's the horizontal one. Doesn't matter, shiny or dull side. Then we rip one that's like a little bit shorter than that, probably a foot and a half, and then that's the vertical piece. And the brisket goes in, on a landscape orientation, horizontal orientation, just in the middle. And then starting from the kind of top side, like the far side away from you, we kind of pull it up and then fold it back in half and then fold it back in half again. And then that's basically the first kind of side of the crimp. And then we just kind of follow that all the way around the outside, just crimping outward. And then kind of the side that's right next to you, that's closest to you, you just kind of finish that off and crimp inward as well. We try to cover crimp outward as well. We try to cover the lean tip. We try to make sure that the kind of front, like the top, like the tip is covered, the fatty tip. And then sometimes, depending on how the kind of, what's left of the mohawk looks, we may try to like cover a little bit more of that on top or not. But basically, trying to leave open the entire part of the fat that is exposed.
Yeah.
And then even on the really good burn end side, sometimes we'll even, this is like some of the, even like recent developments is just like peeling that down a little more.
Oh, really? Just to get a
So
little
that can
more
even
crust on
get
there.
more crispy and more kind of like, on that best piece, we want it to not be completely covered, and just peel that back just a little bit more. And we do that when it's about 165, 175 after most of the juices and fat are going to be rendered out of it. So it's not going to be sitting in a puddle. If it does sit in a puddle, what's nice about the boat is you can tip it over, kind of spill it out a little bit. Um, and it has a bunch of different benefits. Obviously, the crunchy bark, it also allows you to like pick them up and move them really easily. You don't have to lift under a really hot brisket. You can just pick up the foil, even without gloves on. Just pick up the foil. The foil's not going to be hot, and just move that around. It's really easy to move around. You can also check the doneness of it a lot easier, and
Yeah.
that's like, other than the excellent crust, that's the second favorite part of why I like, because you can just reach under and feel exactly how done it is, exactly the tenderness and tautness on the bottom, on the lean side of the brisket. And it also collects a little bit of juices, right? You can save those. You can make a sauce with them. You can kind of dip your briskets in them, and it's good to kind of save the ends, like the cut ends. You can kind of put that down in the juices that are in there, and it'll stay moist. You can also, as you cut the brisket and it gets smaller, if you're not just constantly cutting for a line on a Saturday or something, you can have two sides cut, the fatty side and lean side both cut. You can put those cut sides together, and then basically move the foil in, like shrink the foil in to just cover that. So
For
it's
sure.
like an adjustable kind of package that you can put it in.
Yeah, so
So
you don't have to rip off a piece of butcher paper every single
yeah,
time you take a
yeah,
slice off a brisket, which so many people do that. I'm used to doing too, you know.
right,
And again, like you're saying, saving the juices, it's really hard to save the juices with the butcher paper. And especially like most places will put sauce in their chop, but when we were working together, like we would just use the same juices from the boat and just like
yeah,
pour it over the chopped beef. And so, for people who don't necessarily want, sauce on their chopped beef, like
yeah.
it's just pure, brisket flavor.
It's just fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the coolest thing, because I remember when I first saw it, I was kind of like, man, that's different. And it's so much it's yeah, I think the grip at the end, like you're talking about crimping it and just being able to hold it was like, I've seen so many, like one of my biggest pet peeves with with like when they're fumbling at the finish line is they'll poke a hole in the butcher paper and all that liquid that it needs there, not necessarily to I mean, once it's done cooking, it's really just going to soak up some of that liquid. But as soon as you
Mhm.
tear that paper, that brisket is just not going to be as good as it needs to be. And I think
Yeah.
most of it happens with because you're reaching far into the back of the pit. Um, and you're trying to pick up that brisket with one hand, but with the foil, it's just so easy. Grab it with two hands, just lift it, and move it, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. Um,
Love it.
what I guess yeah, because my biggest thing, like people always tell me all the time, like, oh, like which one do you prefer? And I tell people all the time, like, well, I like both, but I'm just not as good as getting the feel right for a foil wrapped or a boat than I would with a butcher paper. But the other thing that it helps solve for a lot too is people are always asking about foil tips because of like other videos where they see me put
Yeah.
that, and that kind of just solves the entire problem with covering the entire edge with it. But
Hmm.
the other thing too is that I like is that you guys don't really use that as I mean, it serves that same purpose, but you're not intentionally thinking, oh man, that corner is really thin. It's going to get charred up. So we got to we got to put them in the boats earlier, right?
No,
That's
no.
not the thought at
That's,
all.
if you're thinking that corner is going to get charred up, you've already made a mistake
Yeah.
because you didn't trim it right.
Right. And that's the thing that I always try to tell people. It's like, it's not like you can't just throw it into the boat earlier because you're worried about the edges, right? Because, like, you, me, Brad, we always emphasize trim. Trim is so important because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
then you can step away from the fire and take care of the 100 other things that you need to,
Yeah.
and it'll still come out pretty good. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to ask about the foil boat is, do you guys use it for any other cuts of meat? Do you try to use that same method with other stuff? And we kind of played around it for a little bit while I was there with you. I think did we do is that what we did with the chuck roast? I think we did that like one
I
day just
feel
for
like we've
fun.
tried it on other things, but it works so well on brisket. Like
Yeah.
we've tried it with pork belly and beef ribs and a bunch of other stuff, but I just, it just works for the brisket.
Yeah. And you know
We,
what? It works really well. So
yeah. The thing that the people that annoys me is how they don't how people don't see that foil and paper are two different things. So they're like, oh, well, do you wrap in foil or do you wrap in paper?
mhm,
I wrap in paper because if you wrap in foil, it only ends up this way. Well,
right.
if you use foil in the right way, in a different way, then it's gonna be really good,
Yeah.
right? Like in the mad scientist video, he's just like, I could not believe he wrapped that thing in paper and then put it in the boat. I was like,
I thought that
what
was
is this guy
just for the
doing?
thumbnail, and I thought it was just kind of, but I didn't really think that was going to be the cook. And
Dude, it looks so ridiculous in that
oh, it made
thing.
my heart skip a beat because when it posted, Brad sent me a picture of it, and I was like, I have no words right now, and
I'm I'm out on that. I'm out on the double wrap. I'm out on the leather apron. I'm out.
yeah, well, I mean, that's the other thing too. And I think, well, when we're trying to do things, I try to explain to people too, like when you're cooking in your backyard compared to when we're trying to do things for a restaurant, there are obviously things that we can do, and I think a lot of times I've thought like, man, I wish I had, if I could add this one extra step to my cook, I think my food would be better. But I would have to do that multiple times for every single
There
one,
you
and then
go.
it just eats up too much time. And so,
Yeah.
I think there's a huge difference when people are talking about what is the best way to do things. Well, I'm like, well, are you talking about like just in your backyard for fun, or are you thinking about doing it in a massive scale? Because if you aren't, it's all about efficiency at that point. And if you lose efficiency, then it's not practical anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with you. People ask me all the time, it's like, well, in this situation, what do you think is better? It's like, well, I mean, honestly, what do you think is better? Do you want
Right.
to,
What do
are
you
you
like? What's your
trying to,
preference?
first of all, are you trying to create like the best thing that you possibly can? Okay. Or are you also like trying to get some sleep? And if you're saying, are you trying to create the best thing you possibly can? Why? Yeah, you want it to be really good, but like, what are you trying to like you're just are you're going to serve it to your friends and family and they don't know one way or the other probably
Right.
what is
Right.
great and what is not great. It's like just to prove it to yourself, okay, that's fine too, and if you want to just like push through for yourself, that's really good and I support that. But it's like, I don't know, if you want to just like, if I was a hobbyist barbecue guy, I would just like, I don't know. I feel like I'd be like okay at it, but like not really try to. I would watch a lot of videos and stuff, and
Right.
not really try to get that much better at it. It'd probably be just like my golf game. I'm like like really like just like okay at it, and yeah, just not really try that hard to get better, but I just enjoy doing it a lot.
Yeah, and I think especially with barbecue and like your foil boat, right? Like you said, it kind of changed throughout. I'm sure you guys went through different stages of like how much do we actually want to cover it? What
Yeah,
parts that
yeah,
we
for
want to
sure.
make sure we emphasize.
Yeah,
People ask me all the time, like, hey, when you worked at LeRoy and Lewis with the foil boat, like, did you like, people are always asking me like, at what point do you add tallow to your butcher paper? I'm like, I don't, and it's like they always think that there's some, hidden trick to it. But really for us, I think it's, we know what we want to get at the end of the day, and we're trying to find the easiest way to get there,
yeah,
and I can say for sure with like working with you guys for 2 months, like, yeah, the foil boat is very, very easy to do. And it's kind of like one of those things where like you have foil already. Don't go out and buy butcher paper if it's not
yeah,
readily available, or if you don't, or you have the wrong size of butcher paper. You see people having these super, super long rolls that the wrap is just way too loose, or it's like too short where it's still too loose.
Dude, I can't stand when they wrap it wrong. Like they'll like put it in the middle and then they'll just like crumple it up on the top and like fold one corner down. Just like
Dude,
that looks like shit. Like just
dude,
wrap it
there's
up like a
so
burrito.
I'm telling you, that's
Everybody
why I
knows how to
like.
wrap a burrito.
Right. When and it's funny because like the people like my rap is really meticulous because for me I know what I'm looking for. I like exactly what you said too. Like
Yeah.
checking the brisket at the end of the day is super important. And so for me, if your wrap is so ridiculous that I cannot get to the bottom of the brisket when I need to check it, then it's not a good wrap. Like we used to have this one guy I worked with where we used to call his wrap the origami wrap because it was just there's so many folds that I didn't know how to like undo it and to rewrap it again. So I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, you're gonna have to check your briskets because I have no idea what you just did, you know. And you know, it's just that there's no like better, like there's no foil better's better or butcher paper's better. It's kind of like you said, what do you want, right? It's your
Yeah.
preference. If you want like a softer bark, then butcher paper. If you want a crusty bark, you know, then the boat. But you know, with that, you know, the beginning stage of the cook is still more important than what you're going to wrap your brisket with in the second half. Like if you
Yeah, the
dry out or
trim is
cook too
more
out,
important than either of
yeah,
those.
for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make sure that like I wanted to, you know, with people who are asking me questions, I wanted to bring in someone who thought through all the things that they're probably thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Like, why did he do that? How did he do it? What is he looking for? I mean, like, there's no better person than us than the person who kind of started it. So,
My big thing is foil and paper, two different tools, use them two different ways.
yeah,
You know, imagine one is a screwdriver and one is a hammer. You don't use them in the same way. You don't wrap them the same way.
right.
So just use them differently and they'll perform just they'll perform their job.
Yeah. Cool, man. But before we go, I just want to give you an opportunity to, if you want to share any information about LeRoy and Lewis, things that you want to talk about. I know you got your Patreon page as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, everything that we have just discussed with the foil, but we have a three-part series now on the Patreon that we just posted. All of our, so it's probably like an hour's worth of just like brisket video content. But we broke it up into the trim, the cook, and then the like rest and slice. And we, you know, full process, everything from, you know, as we receive it in the cryovac, trim everything, you know, why we do that, describe our rub, describe how we rub it. The cooking part is just basically like, well, it's on the smoker, you know, it's just gonna be there for a while until we
Yeah.
wrap it. We, you know, we demonstrate the whole foil boat. And then, you know, we talk about resting. That's another question we get on. We'll do our entire next podcast will be about resting.
Yeah, okay, sounds good to me. Yeah, that'll take forever to talk about.
Like that's the question that everybody has. And then
Always.
in the last video, we slice it all. We kind of describe how to build a really nice plate and everything. So definitely check that out. Patreon.com/LeRoy and Lewis, LeRoy and Lewis, BBQ.com, at Evan LeRoy BBQ on Instagram, at LeRoy and Lewis.
Perfect. Do you guys also have any? I know you guys did that new school barbecue class. I know you guys offer that brisket class through Zoom as well. Do you guys have any events coming up?
Yeah, we have another one of those. It's going to be on the schedule. Keep an eye on our social media for that.
Cool.
And we are probably going to schedule an in-person class for this summer.
Ooh, all right. I will say, I mean, I got a chance to work with you guys during the first one, and you know, it seems like everyone who's gone to that class and is doing their own thing, like there's definitely influence from your guys cooking what you guys do, but also in a very
Absolutely.
real sense, like they're doing their own thing too, and it's really
Yeah.
cool to see how everyone took the same class, and there are certain things that they do that are similar, but like the way that they're serving the food, presenting the food, it's within their own style. You know, it's
Yeah.
like awesome to see.
And even if, you know, I mean, we're obviously going to teach cheeks, whole hog, sausage, and brisket. You know, we're not even going to cook ribs, but like, you know, if you learn those meats from us and then you have your other barbecue restaurant that is traditional, you've got those things in your back pocket still.
Absolutely, for
You've
sure.
got hands-on experience on how to do those, and you have got that connection and just like my phone number to, you know, just like message me about anything you want at any time. And I'm, you know, just as often as I'm messaging you on Instagram, I'm messaging other people who or from previous classes, just like, hey, I'm doing this. What do you think about this? Or what do you think about this trailer? Da, 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 da. So yeah,
Yeah, and it's one of those things too. Like we always talk about, like getting the feel for when something's done. Like you can't teach that through a video, and
no,
I
you
think
can't.
that in itself, I think being able to know when something is ready to wrap or confit or flip or do whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's all feel, and so
Though in
yeah,
our
I think
in,
it's
in our video, we do a pretty good job of teaching you how to tell when the brisket's done.
perfect. There you go. Yeah, sell that Patreon. But yeah, thank you so much for being part of this video. And again, I just wanted to bring in someone who, knew it, started it, and can give more information than I can. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. It's good
All
talking to
right,
you,
man.
bud.
Sir. So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. It's I haven't seen Evan in quite some time now, so it's just really fun to just kind of like sit and just talk with him. But yeah, it was just I love just his mentality going through with all this, especially with just the way that this foil boat started. It was purely off of an accident. And I think that's one of the things that I think goes with barbecue, because we can't always control every single factor. Like we can't control the wood, we can't control the weather, we can't control sometimes how meat comes from purveyors, and sometimes we can't even control sometimes our employees. Sometimes things just don't go exactly right, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we still have to get the job done. And I think when we have a mentality that is a little more loose, that we're just trying to get to the finish line, a lot of times we end up with certain methods, different styles of stuff that help create a new, I don't know, I want to even say brand for them with the foil boat. Yeah, I just think it's just really fun to kind of see it that way. The other thing that I really liked is how he talked about how it's not necessarily better or worse. Again, it's just kind of like the foil and the butcher paper are two different tools, and you just have to ask yourself, what are you looking for at the end of the day? What's your preference? What do you like? And then from then on, you're just kind of choosing, I guess, what tool you want to use. So before we end, just kind of how Evan ended in our conversation, make sure you guys are following them on social media. If you guys are interested in classes, just kind of check their website periodically, and they should have information kind of available. They also sell merch, they sell sauce, they sell rubs, and all that kind of stuff. So please make sure you guys go check them out if you guys haven't done so already. Just like any other video, make sure you like, subscribe, share this video with your friends who might find this information valuable. And again, leave the comments, questions, and stuff like that down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one.